Hi, my name is Sarah Lassiter, and we are here in New York City at Engine Room Audio. I am joined by audio engineer Gregory Fils-Aime, also known as Phace. Phace is a keyboardist, producer, and audio engineer, and he has worked the boards for artists like Tory Lanez, Joey Badass, and Lloyd Banks. So, Phace, can you share with us a little bit about how you got interested in music and your early career?
So, I to be honest, like, when we all start, I guess we all start music like we pick up the freaking, what's the first instrument we all pick up in elementary school?
recorder.
The recorder. I'm not gonna lie, from that point on, I was like, I grew up in a music family. Like, my dad played saxophone in a band back in Haiti. So I used to like watch VHS tapes of him playing, and it was like the most bugged out thing to me because my dad was like super disciplinarian. Like, that's all I knew him for. Like, get your grades done. Like, there's no like other side to him until I stumbled on this VHS video of him playing the saxophone. And in the 90s, being a saxophone player was everything, by the way. So I immediately wanted to pick up the saxophone because of that. So I picked up the saxophone, and it came really second nature to me. I guess it was just like in my genes. It was like really second nature. Then I was in like a really good middle school concert band program because of just like there was a lot of circumstances that happened where we had to change directors, and the director that actually started leading our band was like super hard on us. Like, the amount of discipline he put on a bunch of like 11, 12 years old were kind of like, it's kind of crazy in retrospect, but it really shaped like my worldview of how to like be a musician and what it took to like actually care about music and not just kind of be a hobbyist with it. So that's kind of like my foundation is like concert band and choir and obviously then early hip hop and all of that. But yeah.
And then how did you discover audio engineering?
So like I said, in high school, I was always kind of like the music guy. Like, I would be the dude banging on the table when the people are rapping and making beats. I would always be the one actually banging on the table, making the beats for everybody. I would make like mix CDs for everybody during I was like actually called DJ Phace because I had mixtapes and shit.
DJ Phace.
But,
You're like burning the CDs in your computer.
Real shit, because people would pass like notes to me like, oh, I need this song, and then I would burn it and I would label my shit DJ Phace. But in my senior year, they allowed us to do these internship programs, and one of the internship programs was this internship at this really tiny studio in like the local college. And I took a chance. I'm like, I want to work in a recording studio. Like, why not? And kind of the rest was history. I ran my first session there. I was like 17. Then I went to school for audio engineering, and then the rest was history.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Were there any challenges that you had to face when beginning your career?
Yeah. Balance was a big thing. Like, the music industry it's not a 9-to-5. So, like, having to balance sort of, I have a wife and I have a child. So, like, having to balance, kind of being on somebody else's time all the time and also spending time with your family is like a big thing for me. So sometimes, you have to make sacrifices. You make sacrifices either in your career or in time with your family, but you kind of just hope that in a couple of years or in 5 to 10 years that it pays dividends. And actually for me, it did. Like, the first half of like my son's life was like, it was a struggle trying to find that balance, but now it's like I can support them with what I do. So
that's incredible. And were there any mentors or anybody who helped shape like your ideas of audio engineering when you first began?
When I first began, yes, I had a teacher in college. His name was Orlando Lignami. He unfortunately passed away actually a couple of years ago, but he was like super just like passionate about it, and he was like really my first introduction to like structured learning about audio engineering. I had another teacher that taught us production, but like kind of like capital P production, not like just making beats, like like solidifying yourself in the studio and how to run a session and how to make sure you get musicians around and how to get the beats that you need and all of that. And then like obviously Mark is really instrumental. Like, when I became an intern here, like Mark was just Mark Christensen, obviously I feel like I'm just speaking. Mark Christensen is the owner of this studio. And when I was an intern, he was just like, to be honest, like, I can't believe how willing he would be to just like sit with just some lowly intern and just like vomit all of his information onto you. He just loves to teach. And I would take any chance I got to just like ask him a question, and like hopefully it was a good question that I can get a lot of info on. But he was like really instrumental in that. And then I had a couple of other OGs that came here, Danny Sardi, Lee Wiggins. You guys know Preem. These guys, like, they would just sit down. You know, sometimes you'd be here till 6 a.m. in the morning as an intern, and even them, they may not have anything to do, so they would come kick it with us. They would open their laptop up. They would show us keyboard shortcuts. They would show us, you know, good templates. They would show us how to compress the vocal the right way. So yeah, that stuff was like, it's so instrumental to like who I am today. Like watching those guys, especially Danny and Lee, like watching them sort of being the two main guys in the studio. I still like to this day kind of try to follow that lead, how they did that.
Yeah. And when did you start at Engine Room Audio? So
I started in 2017 as an intern, on-call intern. I was working a day job up the street in Union Square. I was like in tech sales, so I would always come down here in like a button up and some shoes and some slacks and shit. And but I was like running around, like I was the guy who was like, I'm like Lizzie, like I'm trying to help everybody. Like ain't nobody gonna get to help nobody before me. And the fact that I had the suit on also at the time, people used to think that I was like, yo, he's like, something up with him. Like, does he run the place? And people used to ask me shit that was not my job as an intern, but yeah, it helped me have a lot of confidence to be here. So yeah, I kind of quickly like became an intern here. I quickly moved up to assistant, and then quickly became a GA engineer like 6 months later. So 2017. I always tell my students now, I'll tell them like it could happen. Like I remember listening to Joey Badass at my desk, like dreaming to like work in the studio, and it was like June 2017. And then literally the following year, I was in the studio with Joey Badass.
That's crazy.
So it's crazy when I think about it. So it could happen.
Is that session one of like these memories that's a very pivotal moment for you? Yeah. It's still like a dream when I think about it. Yeah. And
I was still green. I really had just started engineering, and luckily for me, those guys, they knew what they were doing in the studio, so they were willing to deal with my like bumps and bruises when I was like, I was good enough that the sessions ran smoothly, but every once in a while, I'd make a cut too slow, or I would, you know what I mean? But yeah, it was like I couldn't believe the stuff I was hearing from the speakers. I couldn't believe how humble the dudes were, to be honest, especially considering that they were just a year before, they were such a big part of my lives, just like helping me like actualize a dream. And now I'm in the studio with them, and I get to like be a part of it. It's insane to me. Yeah. So yeah, I give like that one. Yeah, if I had like a session that still sticks really heavily in my mind, it's that one.
Are there any other sessions that maybe stick in your mind for good or bad reasons? You ever get kicked out?
Yes, yes. Actually, in that first, as I said I moved up real quick, but in doing that, there was a couple of bruises that I got hit with real quick. I remember one of my first month, I was good. Everything went smooth. The second month, I ran into a client. She was like from Serbia. She could barely speak English, but it was just a struggle. Like the needs that she needed from her engineer was not stuff that I was capable of at the time, and it was very apparent in that session. And I remember the vocal producer kind of just looking at me like, she was cool, but she was like, you're gonna be all right, but just not in this session. Yeah. So she quietly let me walk out, and I had to eat that and just know that I got to get better. And
yeah. And you're always building your skills. Are there any specific skills or qualities that you think an audio engineer like must have in this day and age?
Yes, people skills. I think like the technical skills are very easy to learn. Like you get a good instructor, you can go on YouTube, you can find a lot of the tools and the information. But a lot of like the intangible things about just like knowing when not to talk in a session, knowing when to speak up, those things are hard to gauge. And some of that stuff is just like you learn that on the job, like knowing what your role in the studio environment actually is, and not being too overzealous to like give an idea out when nobody actually wants to hear it. Or on the other side, like realizing that you kind of do actually have more expertise than people give you credit for, and knowing when to kind of put your input in. without obviously like fucking up the flow of, screwing up the flow of
the
session, right?
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with creatives that like they need their juices to just keep going, to keep flowing. You don't want to like disrupt it, but yeah, that is like one of those skills that I'm like very adamant about when I teach my students, when I talk to the interns. It's like that stuff will get you far. I truly believe that my people skills got me way farther than in the beginning of my career than the technical stuff, because I was able to like on the job learn how to be quicker as an engineer, but just kind of being a good vibe and making sure that the energy is good in the studio kind of kept me in rooms where maybe my skill shouldn't have yet at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
And making sure everyone's comfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I talked to Corey about this. Like that was a whole thing for me. Like you come to the studio, I want you to feel like Beyonce. I don't care who you are. Like you got to feel like a superstar.
Yes.
You spend,
that.
premium. You spend. I mean, if I take you to a studio that you're gonna pay $40 an hour on for whatever, fine. But if you're gonna spend the money you spend to work at this studio, like yeah, you should feel like it's a luxury. You should feel like how it would feel like if Nicki Minaj was here as well.
Yeah.
So.
And Phace, you're also a producer. So when did you first start producing, and when did you start working, with other artists as opposed to just like making beats on a laptop?
So around the same time I started engineering, I started producing. I was really bad at making beats. I'm not gonna lie. I was terrible.
Everyone is in the beginning.
Bro, when I tell you how long I feel like it took me to get nice at making beats, I'm like very ashamed of it actually.
No.
I swear to God. That's why I don't like the credit y'all try to give me. It took me a long time. And I do it again, this place is kind of paramount for like really like fixing that. It's just getting around other producers and other talented people, like being in the basement by yourself and not having other energy around you to help you like guide you through what's hot and what's not. I didn't have that for a long time. So coming here like immediately, and it actually clicked like immediately within a month. I remember you can clearly hear the difference between the shit I was making before I came here and the shit I was making after I came here. So.
Well, being in like a studio environment is so important. Being exposed to all those other people. When you're in your bedroom, it's just like, who's gonna help you? The Holy Spirit.
And you just think your stuff is hot. Like it came from you. You think it's better than it actually is. And yeah, to you it is dope. Like that's not to say that it's not. But bro, when you come to the studio and you hear on premium speakers like some of the stuff that the other people are making, you like wow. And it naturally kind of seeps into you and it makes you better. Yeah.
And working with like the high quality equipment and everything.
Yeah, just being able to hear what a record sounds like kind of just right off jump. Like I'm using the same gear that the top artists use, right? And immediately being able to identify that, suddenly like making records just becomes that much easier.
Yeah.
And then you can go back to the other stuff. It doesn't mean that you can't use different gear, but it's like, nah, now I know what it's supposed to sound like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And what's so fun about this industry is that it's just constantly evolving, the technology. And I always feel like we should be ahead of where we are. But I mean, you think just a couple decades ago, like people were doing tape.
Not even that long ago.
Yeah.
I know people who are still doing tape in like into the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
There's some people still doing tape. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah. So how do you like stay current with all the new technologies? Obviously being in a studio helps, like especially here where Mark's really into all the new stuff like Atmos and everything.
For me it's just like, especially when you're trying to get clients and you're trying to compete with other engineers and you're trying to compete with what's in the marketplace, if you just use your ears enough, you start to realize like, oh, this is the old sound, I need to be on this sound now. Yeah. Right. So like if I took like back in the early 2000s, things were like stupid loud for no reason, right? And then we went through a phase where like things got a little quieter, and now we're on like the new wave is like, it's not as loud, but it's a little kind of distorted because people are recording their stuff in like Fruity Loops, and it's a lot of like it's a lot of bedroom producers, which is cool, but now I have to compete with that sound and I have to do it in a way that sounds premium. That when you're paying for a mix at a studio, that I have to give you a version of that sound but that's not like, it doesn't sound like crap.
That you actually made it in the bedroom.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah. And is there any moment that you would say is like your greatest achievement? I mean, obviously just like being able to care for your family.
Yeah, that's really
this.
it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Sometimes like there's not like one moment. Like it happens all the time where you just kind of pinch yourself and like, am I in the studio with this person? Like that happens a lot. But honestly, what's the craziest is the fact that like paying your bills with music is nuts. Because I was on the other side of it.
Yeah.
I was on the side where I was like not really doing what I wanted to do, and then now I'm like, it's like I can barely complain. Don't get it twisted. There's stuff about working in the music industry it sucks. Like there's a lot of it, right? But the trade-off is like I get to like make music and then pay my bills.
Yeah.
Like, that's nuts. That's all I do all day is like come to the studio, I make music, right? I record music, I mix music, I produce music, and then I go home, and then I just get to do it again. It's nuts.
No, it's so fun.
It's crazy.
It's so fun. And looking ahead, is there any special projects or anything coming up that you can share with us?
I can't. I don't know if I'm allowed. See, this is the part about being an engineer, man. This is what I'm telling you. Is you work on a lot of cool stuff, but you got to know your place, man. I can't. It's not my place to.
Those NDAs.
It's not even an NDA. It's just like, like it's not my place to say. If you was talking to an artist, they can say, but it's not my place. Like I could say one of your favorite artists from the 2000, one of your favorite rappers from the 2010s is putting out a mixtape really soon, and I would have recorded 90% of it.
That's so exciting.
So you'll probably, when it comes out, you'll know what it is, but I can't say it because it's not my place, and I don't want to get fired.
Okay. People skills.
Yeah, people. This is what I'm talking about. Know your place, bro. I'm not.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today,
Thank you.
Phace.
Thank you. Whatever you need, I always got.
Yeah.